Talking some Canes baseball after a much-needed Saturday night win against Florida and talking some conference realignment. That Power 2 is just getting crazy. Alex Donno joined here by Raymond Bourg, a.k.a. GA Cane fan. Ray, busy time of year for a man who is very baseball eccentric like yourself. You got the third base coach outfit on. How you doing, sir?
Doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing really well. And, I know that you and I, when we talk off air, not only about baseball, we talk a lot about Power 2, conference realignment. And, the SEC and the Big Ten, they formed that alliance less than a month ago. And when that alliance was initially announced, they even said, like, this has nothing to do with breaking away from the NCAA. That's not what this is about. And then a few weeks later, there's already strong rumors now that they are discussing potentially breaking away from the NCAA and using that, Ray, as leverage, right? Because we're negotiating and talking already about expanding the college football playoff from 12 teams to 14 teams, and something being lobbied allegedly by the Big Ten and the SEC is to have the first two seeds, the top two seeds, always guaranteed to be an SEC and Big Ten champion and guaranteed first round bye to go to only one of the teams from that conference, with the other conferences not being eligible. It's like, man, if that goes through, you're really going to need to be in that Power 2, because that's just a massive advantage.
Yeah, and there's a top of that as well too. Also, the three teams from the SEC and the Big Ten get a guaranteed spot in there, no matter how bad they are, which takes a lot of gumption in what they're trying to do, but they are controlling the process. I mean, perfect example is University of Tennessee winning the NIL case along with UVA. So right now the NCAA is just done. I don't know what they're going to regulate inside the world of football, but they're ready to make that move. But definitely it's going to put a lot of the ACC teams and some Big 12 teams potentially, what are we going to do, because we can't get into the dance. We're waiting for the lawsuit from Florida State. Rumors are that this being negotiated, they're going to get it out. Where they're headed for sure is just speculation between the Big Ten and the SEC. I would hope, and I expect Miami and Florida State to go together, because I have a feeling they are somewhat quietly working behind the scenes. And we're going to have to get into a better conference, or we're going to be playing catch up, or we're going to be going to Michigan or Ohio State in early December or mid-December, or January, and that won't be fun.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're right about, Miami and Florida State possibly making a move together, because I have my doubts about that based on some of the things that I read. Like this very popular X account who's been right about a lot of stuff Big Ten related in the past, Big Ten information. He is, listen, I don't know if this guy speaks gospel. I don't know if he's the end all be all, but he has been saying that from what he's hearing, the Big Ten is really right now only interested in Florida State and Notre Dame. And they feel like that would get you. Obviously, Notre Dame is an international brand at this point, and Florida State, huge brand, and they would bring in a lot from Florida. And they don't feel like, Miami or even Clemson is a must get right now, because of the TV factors. They feel like Florida State and Notre Dame would sort of meet what they're looking to expand, in different parts of the country. So, I hope he's not right, because if a lot of people say the SEC is not really interested in Miami at this point. So Raymond, I don't want to be in this game of musical chairs. I don't want to be left without a chair when the music stops.
No, absolutely not. And I believe the SEC is going to be a realistic possibility. I mean, we keep hearing that the UF will try to block them, but it's not the 80s anymore. They don't have that kind of power.
Right. They don't have veto power. Yeah.
And it's going to be more of like, we need the TV ratings. And if Florida State does go to the Big Ten, I'm like, we need to get Miami because we need another solidification within the state. Will it hurt recruiting for some teams? Yeah, but honestly, with Saban gone, I think that's going to happen no matter what. But they're going to look at Miami as a TV market, but also as a perennial power in multiple sports. I know we get basketball, but they can actually fulfill not just being a good football team, but multiple sports. But it's going to be soon. I mean, I think it's going to be by this summer. This is all going to happen. Once the Florida State case gets taken care of, it's going to move fast, because that's how expansion seems to go. It's not a long, slow process. It seems to happen within weeks or months. Pac-10 went to 12 teams. Big 12 made changes. A&M all of a sudden jumped the Big 12 to go to the SEC, and Missouri came with them. It doesn't move slow. It's a fast running train. There's a lot of things behind the scenes. And if you don't think things are happening behind the scenes, you're fooling yourself. It's going to happen that quick.
Yeah, 1000%. I want your opinion on something because a couple days ago I mentioned something about conference realignment because I was asked a question. I think it was by Pat Mack, one of our listeners, and part of his question was which of the Power Two would be more attractive. There are definitely pros and cons to both. Obviously administratively, I think Miami fits a little bit better with the Big Ten, like from an academic standpoint, geography, the SEC is a much bigger fit. But I mentioned, which is purely a matter of opinion, Ray, that I still think maybe the SEC a bit more of like the power conference when it comes to football. A lot of people in the comments disagreed with me. Maybe the perception that Alabama could be down for a while, but I think Georgia, to me, is the best team in the country heading into next year. The SEC has plenty of depth, so strictly a matter of opinion, I still consider the SEC to be a slightly stronger football conference. It's close. Do you agree or disagree with that?
It's close as well, but I'll disagree with you. I think maybe Ohio State's the number one team in the country and not Georgia. Okay. I think they're doing a lot of rebuilding, specifically there's issues on the defensive line, the offensive line. They're going to have a lot of guys drafted. I would geographically, being selfish, living here in Georgia and bouncing back and forth to Florida, I would love to see the SEC. I don't want to see a Big East scenario where it's all up north. You can never go to a game or it's expensive. But academically, it does line up better with the Big Ten. I mean, there's just no question about that. The universities are just very strong academically and into research, and there's no two ways about that.
Miami Hurricanes got a huge win Saturday night in baseball against the Florida Gators, and I'm wondering if that can hopefully be a sign of the tides turning with this young Miami baseball team and a sign of things to come. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started with our guy, GA Cane fan Raymond Bourg, with us here on this new episode of Locked On Canes. And I'm only getting started, my friends, on FanDuel because we're winning money. We're having an awesome time this basketball season. Guys, you can get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. And if you're South Florida fan like I am, the Miami Heat, they've been winning us a ton of money recently. That's $150 if your first bet wins. You can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props. Hey, a couple months ago, not so much now. The Jimmy Butler playoff props, playoff Jimmy is kind of the version we're seeing right now, but the late season Jimmy Butler props are starting to really hit. So we're having an awesome time here all over FanDuel. There's so much more you can get. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Thank you so much for making this Sunday episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We are free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We have our baseball correspondent, Raymond, with us. Raymond, so, we're recording this before the Sunday series finale. Miami dropped the Friday night opener. I thought they were going to be in big trouble on Saturday, but then the Bats absolutely came alive against the Gators. Are we starting to figure out who this team is now? Or what are your early takeaways on J.D. Arteaga, who's, been with the program for many years, but this is his first year as the skipper?
Well, right now it's a small sample size of 10 games. I was shocked yesterday at the Bats coming alive. That seemed to be a problem earlier in the year. JD knows he's got a very young team. I mean, it's basically 3 starting pitchers. Hernandez, Schlesinger, and Keel are all juniors, and everybody else really is freshmen and sophomores in the bullpen. And the bullpen basically is the future starters, and they bring them in as freshmen. Usually they put them in the bullpen for a little beginning of the season, and then they'll make him starters. But right now, I think he's been very aggressive. And some of the interviews he basically made the same comment I did, was, I don't know what my pitching staff's going to be like. I'll know toward the middle and end of the season because they're all very young. It's still incomplete right now for him, but he's been very aggressive on the base paths. He's basically 5 for 8 for stolen bases. Some of them I was questioning him to make those move. For a couple of them now were out some of the earlier games, but I think he's trying to get the troops moving forward and get them motivated and get some confidence building. He's going to feel them out. I don't think we're getting a good, strong rotation until later, but I think that's going to be very interesting to watch as we start getting into ACC play. But the UF game yesterday absolutely shocked me because that's been the problem. The pitching gets racked. Yeah. In fact, Zeal's got an ERA of, I believe it was 6.62 earned runs, and that's really bad for a junior who's supposed to be the 72nd best project in college baseball this season.
Yeah, that's not good enough, but hopefully he can find his form. So Canes baseball, and by the way, I still need to get out there this season because especially for the crazy milkshakes, they had Gator bites in the milkshake, they had bagels and lox in a milkshake. Recently, I got to get out there. So okay, you talk a little bit about the pitching, Ray. What needs to happen for this pitching to meet your expectations? What were your preseason expectations?
Basically, it was more of like let's find out what's going to happen and see how the young kids are going to develop. But I expected a lot more from Zeal early.
Yeah.
Granted, he lost one game. He lost a game Friday night. That's not fair. You're playing against a top 4 team, but let's be, they could be the number 1 team in the country. They didn't have that game. We lost against St. John's, and the rest of that series be rained out. I guess Luke Harseka probably smiled at that one when he saw that victory. But I expect a little bit more. But I think the biggest thing is getting the freshmen together. Roberts, Vargas, Cabra. There's some really good talent they brought in recruiting wise, and get those up to speed. Like I said, JD's knows what he has. They've got a new pitching coach, and it's going to take some time. But they're going to need the bats to support them. They got a little bit cold yesterday. They really started heating up, but we had a scenario with UCF a week ago where they lost 4-3 at home, and it was a late home run. I believe it was the 6th inning. They got 3 runs in, and they changed the pitchers, and that was that. But that's a concern how he handles the pitches as well too, because Schlesinger actually pitched over 100 pitches yesterday. I was like watching him like, boy, he's really testing this young man and see if he can do it. But he threw 100 pitches, and he got himself out a couple of jams, including 2 big guys on scoring position, I believe, late in that 6th inning, and he got him out. So he hung on with his pitcher, had confidence, and he came through.
How important is this series against Florida? You mentioned top 4 team in the country, could end up being Florida number 1 when it's all said and done. How important is this as like a measuring stick early season series for Miami?
Well, yesterday I felt as we spoke, it was a scenario where get all the guys exposed, all these young freshmen, because that's what we did the first game, start bringing all the new pitchers. It was our first start. In fact, one of them went up with Colonial, the first baseman, the top 4, draft pick. Next spring's MLB draft is just, here you go. Welcome to college baseball. And he's going to feel them out. And then basically it's like, okay, guys, this is what we're going to have to do to get here. This is one of the best teams in the country. And this is what you have. This is the level you have to get to. But then I saw yesterday's game, and I was very impressed and extremely shocked about how many runs they got and the amount of home runs on that pitching staff.
Yeah.
So I think it's important, but I think it's also a developmental one. Now, if we win today at 1:00, it'll be interesting. When they got I was shocked about this, but Hernandez is pitching. He's 2-0. He's got a good ERA of 0 so far. Grant's only a couple starts, 2 starts. But then the pitcher's going to be their best hitter, Cologno. He started pitching today. He plays first base and pitcher.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's why I hate to designate hitter in Major League Baseball, because I love seeing pitchers hit.
Yeah, right.
But I think it's going to be a very interesting game, but it's a very winnable game. I don't know how long he'll be there if the volume bats get hot. But if they win this game, I think it's going to bring a lot of confidence in for coming into the ACC in the next couple of weeks in that conference schedule.
Yeah, and the start of the conference schedule will be against Virginia at home starting on March 8th. What's been your early feeling on a very good Virginia team?
Virginia's played really well. I haven't really kept up with them as much because I've been focusing on Miami, but they're a very good team. They've got a very good class. I believe they may not be top 25 right now. I have not looked at the latest polls on Virginia specifically because I've been focusing on the SEC and those teams since I was trying to get ready for the Gator game. But UVA is a very good team. They're one of the favorites to win the whole thing, but they're still below Wake Forest. I mean, the team I look for in the ACC is Wake Forest and North Carolina and NC State. Those are the teams I really focus. I think UVA has got a younger team, not quite as talented, but they're still going to play well. But it's going to be an important series.
Yeah, it looks like Virginia is still top 15. Wake Forest is number 1, so it's not going to be easy coming up, but I appreciate, Ray, your time as always, my friend. Make sure you check this guy out, Raymond Bourg, who's our baseball correspondent. We will talk to everybody next time. By the way, we are going to have some football content dropping today. I had a chance to chat with at their autograph signing, which was awesome. Ruben Bain, Jaden Wayne, Daryl Porter Jr., Popo Aguirre, getting their thoughts, heading into Monday's first practice in spring football. So we'll talk to you guys again next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.